Hey everyone, if you've ever brought home a gorgeous new houseplant only to watch in horror as its perfect leaves get all brown and crispy on the edges, then you know the struggle. It's so frustrating. You give it light, you give it love, but it just seems unhappy. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the real reason that's happening, and I'll show you exactly how to fix it for good. Okay, let's just call it what it is. We're talking about the drama queens of the plant world, aren't we? Plants like calatheas, the prayer plants, they are famous for being ridiculously picky. You feel like you're doing everything by the book, and you still get those dreaded crispy edges. But what if I told you the problem isn't you? What if the plant isn't actually being dramatic at all? That's it. That's the secret. The culprit is almost certainly flowing right out of your kitchen tap. For so many of these sensitive tropical plants, the tap water we're giving them is packed with hidden stuff that's slowly but surely causing damage. So what is it? What's actually hiding in your tap water that's throwing this massive tantrum in your plant pots? Well, let's break down the two main offenders that these sensitive plants absolutely cannot stand. First on our hit list is fluoride. Now, it's added to a lot of our drinking water for our teeth, which is great for us. But it turns out it can be pretty toxic to certain plants. And we're not just guessing here. Research from centers like the IFOS in Florida has shown that it builds up right in the tips of the leaves, and that's what causes that classic brown, crispy look. The second problem is something called total dissolved solids, or TDS for short. Just think of this as a catch-all term for all the extra stuff that isn't pure H2O. We're talking salts, minerals, even tiny bits of metal. Over time, all that gunk builds up in the soil, and it can actually burn the plant's roots and stop it from drinking properly. Okay, so we've identified the villain, tap water. So what's the solution? People have come up with all sorts of tricks and hacks to try to make their water better. Let's take a look at some of the most common ones and see if they actually hold up. I am almost positive you have heard this one before. It's probably the #1 piece of advice given to new plant parents. The idea is simple, right? Just let the bad stuff like chlorine bubble away into the air. But does it really work? And the answer is nope, not really. Here's the deal. Letting water sit out might work for old school simple chlorine. But most water systems these days use something called chloramine. It's a much more stable chemical, which means it doesn't just evaporate. No matter how long you let that water sit, the chloramine is still in there. So, what about the heavy-duty options for pure water? Well, you've got distilled water. It's fantastic, incredibly pure stuff, but you're going to be buying and holding those heavy plastic jugs from the store forever. Then there's reverse osmosis. An RO system gives you super pure water right at home, but they can be really expensive, kind of complicated to install, and honestly, they waste a ton of water to make a little bit of pure water. This brings us to a much more realistic, practical solution for most of us: filtration. But, and this is a big but, not all water filters are the same. Not even close. So let's put a couple of the most popular types side by side and see what's what. Okay, this is where the light bulb really goes off. Take a look. A standard filter, like the kind most people have in their fridge, doesn't remove fluoride at all, and it only gets rid of maybe half the dissolved solids. But then you look at a zero water filter, and bam! It removes 99% of that fluoride and pretty much all of the dissolved solids. It's not even a competition. So what this all means is that you can get water that is totally free from that damaging fluoride and has basically zero other dissolved gunk in it. This is exactly the kind of pure water that those picky calatheas and orchids dream about. And let's be real, it's way, way easier than buying jugs of distilled water or renovating your kitchen for an RO system. Talk is cheap. Let's actually see the proof. We're going to measure some regular tap water and then see what happens after it takes a trip through the filter. The numbers really do speak for themselves here. All right, here we go. We've got a simple TDS meter. We stick it in a glass of tap water, and we get a reading of 132 parts per million. That means for every million little parts of water, there are 132 parts of other stuff. That's what our poor plants have been trying to drink. And the process itself could not be more straightforward. First, you measure your tap water so you have a baseline. Then, you just pour that water into the pitcher and let gravity do its thing, pulling the water through that 5-stage filter. And once it's done, you measure it again. And would you look at that? 0. A big, fat 0. It went from 132 parts per million of dissolved solids all the way down to nothing. All of that stuff, the minerals, the salts, the chemicals, it's just gone. This is pretty much as pure as water can get. It's exactly what these plants have been crying out for. So, what did we learn today? It's really not about having some kind of magical green thumb. It's so much simpler than that. It's about understanding what your plants actually need, right down to the water they drink. When it all boils down to it, this is the key. Getting those perfect, lush, healthy leaves isn't some secret skill you have to be born with. It's about making one simple change. By taking the junk out of your tap water, you give your plants the clean, pure foundation they need to absolutely thrive. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've seen what a huge difference pure water makes for our plants, but if your tap water has 132 parts per million of things that aren't actually water, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other simple things in our environment are we just totally overlooking? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.